Medicaid are going broke? One big reason is fraud. It's been infecting government health care programs for years. So tonight, our Investigations Inc. team begins an ongoing look at the scourge of health care fraud. It's fraud that is coming out of your pocket. Senior correspondent Scott Cohn is here with a home health care scam for the record books. Good evening, Scott.
Good evening, Larry. By the most conservative estimates, we're losing $120 billion a year to fraud in federal and state health programs. $120 billion a year. One big problem area is home health care. It's a huge business in its own right. And it's where one company was getting away with a massive fraud for years till they ran smack dab into one Richard West. He is 63 years old, a single dad with muscular dystrophy. But Richard West has never backed down from a fight. Not when he served in the infantry in Vietnam, and certainly not now.
I am an American. This is my country, and I don't want to rip it off.
Maxim Healthcare, a giant company with operations in 43 states, was supposed to provide 8 hours of nursing care a day, billed to Medicaid and the VA. But the nurses would often come late, leave early, or not show up at all. So he started keeping notes.
I would write, no nurse. Or I would write, Brenda, late.
Not only was Maxim billing the taxpayers for a full day, West wasn't getting the care he needed to stay alive. I mean, how helpless did you feel in the midst of all of that?
You're not getting care. You don't have a voice. And people are abusing you.
He complained to the state and to the feds, but nothing changed. Then he was told he had used up his benefits with care he hadn't received.
I went on the web, looked up Medicaid fraud, found out there was a thing involved, a whistleblower's lawsuit.
Robin West, no relation, is Richard's attorney.
You need the documents and you need the proof, and he had kept it all.
Prosecutors still weren't convinced. Then they met with Richard just before Christmas in 2004, and he made them a bet.
I said, I'll bet they bill for a nurse in my home while I'm sitting here with you. Busted out. They wouldn't do that.
Sure enough, on December 23, 2004, while Richard West sat in a federal courthouse 70 miles away, Maxim was billing the taxpayers for 8 hours of nursing care in his home.
We are here today to announce a resolution of fraud charges against Maxim Healthcare Services.
Turns out Maxim was doing a lot of that. Last week, the company agreed to pay $150 million to settle charges it was ripping off the government for years. It's the largest settlement of its kind ever, and the latest in a federal crackdown on healthcare fraud. Prosecutions are up 85% from a year ago. $3 billion recovered so far this year. Tom O'Donnell is a special agent in charge in the Health and Human Services Inspector General's office.
Medicare does not have unlimited resources. Medicaid actually is exceeding Medicare. The costs are gargantuan. So we have to do something.
As the whistleblower, Richard West was entitled to a share of the fines. In his case, that came to $15 million.
It is so much more than I can fathom it.
But far more important, Richard says, is what he's accomplished.
People from all over the country are saying, thank you for standing up for the little guy.
Interestingly, the fraud against Richard West in his account was only in the tens of thousands of dollars, but you multiply that by thousands of victims in 43 states and you get millions in fraud. He says this struggle, which lasted 8 years, was actually harder than serving in combat in Vietnam, but in both cases he didn't know if he'd live to see the end of it. Maxim Healthcare declined to be interviewed for this story. In a statement emailed to us today, Maxim CEO Brad Bennett says Richard West did absolutely the right thing and says the company has worked dramatically on reforms, including
management team. Larry?
Scott Cohn, that is an amazing story, and I just want to ask you briefly, are there other Richard Wests? Are there other examples of people who have stepped forward and who might have won and might have actually been paid for their efforts?
Well, there are people stepping forward now, and this is one thing that the feds, particularly the HHS Inspector General's office, is trying to get people aware of, that there are these potential windfalls for whistleblowers, for people who can expose this fraud. It's a big tool, part of a number of tools that the government now has to try and crack down on this fraud. As you heard, the prosecutions are way up this year, but a lot of fraud.
Thank you. Scott Cohn, great work, fantastic work, everybody. Programming note on Monday, Education Secretary Arne Duncan will be here